Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to today's video, and we will be going over this new build setup that I tried out, and it is using two wands with the new Rune enchant that costs me around, I think, 100 divines total. The new enchant is called Haunted by Tormented Spirits, and in conjunction with tinctures, it has allowed Kinetic Blast, personally for me, to be played as a solo skill. Usually you will have to use another single target link in the gloves with either Ellie hit or power siphon, but with this amount of damage with the tinctures and these rune enchants, I was able to dual wield wands, which is something I've never done before. Generally, you always want to use a shield because it provides a lot more defenses. Now, this league, they did buff dual wield a little bit. They made it from 15% chance to block to 20% chance to block, so it is providing a bit of defenses. Now, in terms of the bossing, everyone always knows that Kinetic Blast is incapable of doing any bossing. Now, the nice part about the T17 maps is that because the layouts are so terrible, and T17s are just another story completely, we'll probably have a different video going over what I personally think about T17s and if they should be changed or not, but all things aside, T17s have this layout which have a lot of walls because the layout is extremely narrow. So here you'll see the boss. Now the boss is something that is a huge challenge to do generally, but there is a head on a buff that I'll go over that allows you to instantly kill the boss. As you see here, it spawns something called a frost wall on the boss. It's just obliterated. And if you look right there in the boss, what's it called, the shock stacks on the boss, I can pause it real fast right here. You'll see that it has 98% and 12%, which means that KB as a solo skill is capable of inflicting the max amount of shocks on the boss because of all the overlapping explosions. So overall, that's just a general guideline of how the build looks to play in a map. I have tried out some 100% deli maps, and the clear is decent. However, the bossing in 100% deli is kind of tough. Now, why are we using dual wield wands? Well, in Settlers League, they introduced this rune enchant called Haunted by Tormented Spirits. And straight off the bat, people were kind of curious as to what this enchant was because of the extreme cost of the enchant. Now, if you look at here, you'll see this is 13 power runes. Now, power runes is the most expensive rune by far. And if you go to, let's just go to the King's March to look at the rune crafting bench, you will see that a lot of classes don't even have the ability to put that many power runes on. So this one, Projectiles Return to You, is 15, and this is probably one of the better enchants. Now, bow, you'll see the best one is 3 power runes for additional curse and minion damage. So you'll see straight off the bat, you can tell how good an enchant is or potentially will be just based on how many power runes it's going to use. So you can look at right there. So let's see. So here you can see 13 power runes. So everyone thought that this thing was going to be crazy. And you look at this one here that allows you to play Vol skills with permanent uptime, actually uses 15 power runes. And this one also has 4 power runes for chaos damage is lucky. And claws and bows both got shafted kind of, as they do not really have any of those crazy enchants that requires a lot of power runes. And this one is life leech from hits is instant, and so on and so forth. So here we have 11 power runes, energy shield leech. So this gives you what's it called, leech not remove when you reach full energy shield. But basically everyone was curious about what this enchant actually was. Now the biggest winner is definitely going to be wands in this meta defining enchant. And this wand enchant can also be dual wielded. Like some of the more powerful ones are on two-handers, but for the wand, you can wear 2 wands and you can get this enchant. And with tinctures, this allows you to boost Kinetic Blast's damage high enough, and it also allows you to get more clear speed because of the movement speed that you get granted. Now, what this buff does is it gives you 35% movement speed, 35% attack speed and cast speed, and 35% increased damage. So if you have 2 of them, you have 70% move speed and 70% attack damage and attack speed and cast speed. So it is a crazy amount of damage. And that move speed is something that you can't really replace anymore. Most builds are really lacking on move speed without the berserk giving you the more move speed modifier. Now, in addition to this, it also gives you 2 random ghost buffs, and we're just gonna demonstrate it a little bit. So I want you to keep in mind that my damage in town is 128,000. Now, I have tried it out a bit, and it does seem like it does switch out the Tormented Spirit buffs that you get. But you see here, we have 2 possessions. Now, you don't really get possessed right away until you come closer to mobs for some reason. It has to be, it probably does with the mob AI type. But you'll see here that we have this, we have 2 ghost buffs, and right now you'll see that the Kinetic Blast tooltip is at 198k. So that is roughly the amount of damage that you get. So from 128k to 198k just from these 2 wand enchants. Now, if you look at the tinctures, it goes up to 541,000, and it doesn't take into account the penetration. So let's go check out our move speed. So move speed is at 124% move speed modifier right there. And let's go back to town, and you'll see our move speed in town is at 54%. So we are getting the bonuses from both of these wand enchants. Now let's go see the attack speed. So attack time is 0.2 seconds. Now let's go run and try to get the Tormented Spirit buff. And sometimes you have to, okay, so now we are possessed by them again. So you can see we're lit up, and our attack time is 0.14. So it drastically lowers the attack time, and with the tinctures is all the way cut down to 0.11. So it brings the attack speed down, or attack time, granting you more attack speed. Now, this does confirm that you are able to dual wield these enchants. Now, if you're curious about what these Tormented Spirit buffs are, there is a breakdown of these on the wiki. I did look through most of them, and they do rotate. If you go to a different zone, for instance, I think you get different ones. I'm not sure if they rotate on the hour or every half hour. Let me know down in the comments below. And you'll see that some of them aren't the best, like 5% chance to blind enemies, while other ones supposedly give you 50% more attack speed. Skills repeat an additional time. You have a bleeding, you have a cold res sometimes, you have a chance to ignite. So there's a bunch of them, and there's even a percent life. So it's kind of hard to say exactly what it is, because if you look at the wiki, it even says that these things are data mined and they're not 100% accurate. So let's go try out a different zone real fast. So let's go to the Vistiri Desert. The Vistiri Desert, you run around here, and if we get the buff yet. Okay, so you'll see that we actually get the same looking buffs in here. So what about a map? Let's go see what it looks like let's just put in 100% Delhi map real fast. So this is some random one right here. See if the buff looks any different in maps. So this is 100% Delhi, by the way, and when I played it on my bow build with nearly like 80 million DPS, it was hard to even kill a rare. So basically, you'll see here that we have a similar looking buff again. So I wonder if it rotates based on the zone, or it rotates on the hour and is constant all the time. Not 100% sure, but basically you get 2 of these Tormented Spirit buffs, and the Tormented buffs do work. The baseline buff does get double, and it does grant you an astounding amount of damage. So right here is at 190k again. Now, let's see. So what's the cost of the enchant, you might be wondering? Well, the cost of the enchant is pretty bad. Now, I would dare to say the wands that I crafted, the enchant costs more than actually crafting the wand. And the wand cost a good amount, as I had to use fracturing orbs, which are around 5 to 6 divines each. So the total cost is 13 power runes, 33 journey runes, 33 time runes. Now the power runes is around 1.7 to 2 divines. Easiest way to buy these runes is probably to use the currency exchange. It is very difficult to get that amount on the trade site sometimes, because people don't really have that many for sale. So you have to go on here, power rune, and you can set like a buy order, and it does get filled out in time. So you can see it's 1.75 to 1. But if you're patient, you can probably get it at 1.5 to 1. So you control click this to switch it to see the buy and sell orders. So time rune's around 100 chaos, journey rune is around 8 chaos. And if you add it all up, it is around 45 to 50 divines for one of these enchants. And it should be that expensive because it is really that game breaking. Now, the enchant will probably get more expensive over time. I think a lot more people will re-roll into wand-based builds as it does unlock a lot of speed for certain builds that usually lack that type of movement speed and attack speed and cast speed. So if more people roll into it, I don't think the supply of power runes can necessarily keep up, as it is a relatively rare drop from doing the league mechanic. So why even dual wield wands? Now, I mainly did dual wield wands because I wanted to play Kinetic Blast and I wanted to have as much damage as possible and as much fun as possible while utilizing these new enchants. Now, dual wield, as I said earlier, gives you 10% more attack speed and 20% chance to block damage. And this is not too bad. It's not like that much worse than having a shield. Well, it technically is. So you can see right here, we have evasion. Our block damage is 24%. I think you get some block from this node and somewhere else. But you do have a bit of block from dual wielding, and the attack speed does make it feel really nice. Now, the main issue with having the dual wield wands is you need to roll 2 wands that are good. So instead of just having 1 Giga wand, you have to roll 2 of them. So I rolled both of these wands with starting with the fractured prefix base and spammed essences, and then use prefixes can't be changed with a veiled orb in order to craft them. So we have one here and this one over here. Now they both have Haunted by Tormented Spirits, and it does help out a little bit because you get that spell damage roll, which does affect KB. Because if you don't know, Kinetic Blast got buffed last patch to give increases and reductions to spell damage apply at 200% of their value. So, and they also, I think, buffed the attack speed and the attack damage. So Kinetic Blast was hugely buffed in this most recent patch. Now, dual wield also opens you up to getting some dual wield clusters. You can take these dual wield ones down here. It's kind of far for me personally, but there's also more dual wield clusters, I think, over here. I think down here, more block, attack speed ones. And spell damage is always okay. And here, if you want some cooldown recovery of your movement skills. So a bunch of dual wield masteries that opens up if you do decide to dual wield wands. Now, you can always use 1 wand. There's no real reason that you have to use 2 wands unless you are just super greedy about getting more damage. Now, Kinetic Blast's main issue has always been single target. So how do we remedy that issue? Now, the easiest way to fix it is to just get lucky with headhunter buffs and get the frost wall. So you can see down here in this picture, once you have the frost wall up, and this is something you steal from the headhunter buffs, the frost wall shotguns, because every single one of the projectiles hits the wall and it explodes and creates secondary projectiles. And this will be used to insta-kill the boss. Now, you might say, how rare is it to get this buff? Now, if you do the T17 maps and you do juice maps, because the build is so fast at clear speed, I had the frost wall buff literally up like more than 50% of the time when I went to go kill the boss. And this does require you to use the Nemesis Scarab. I'm not sure if I have one here, but Nemesis Scarab makes the rare monsters have 2 additional modifiers. So it does help in getting that frost wall buff. Now, second off, you can also use Spell Slinger Tornado, which is something I'm using. So the way Spell Slinger works is every time you attack, it casts the spell linked to the Spell Slinger. It does require 25% reservation in order to use it, but the way that the tornado works is that it counts as an extra enemy. So you hit it as an extra enemy, and it also reflects 10% of damage taken to enemies. So this helps a lot with shotgunning the boss. Now, we are also using Arcanist Brand for Hydra Spear and Flame Wall. What Flame Wall does is if your projectile passes through the Flame Wall, it gains a lot of flat fire damage. And Hydra Spear is also nice. It applies exposure, and it does kind of act as an extra target. However, the problem with Hydra Spear is that it's been nerfed so much. In the past, people used to use it to shotgun, but you can only hit it once every 1 second. So it does help out a little bit for the shotgunning, but not that much. Now, another option is to bring the boss to a wall, and this is perfect on a lot of T17 maps due to the enclosed nature of the boss arenas. Now, if all else fails, you can use 8-link gloves and have a separate elemental hit or power siphon, and this should provide you with enough damage to solve all of your single target problems. Now, how exactly does this build really function? I'm going to go over all the little different pieces that I'm using. Now, this is a pretty expensive build, and there are multiple ways to build it. So Fledgling is kind of a no-brainer. Usually, it gives you far shot, 60% more damage. Kind of hard to really argue against using it. I'm not sure why we weren't using it in the past, but I think I was just kind of afraid about the close range. But the close range is really only like 2 meters. Now, Utmost, this amulet is used for the max res in conjunction with Brass Dome. It gives you close to 90% res. You can get 90% with the Purity of Elements Watcher's Eye. That gives you 1% max res. But I do think that max res is the easiest way of getting defenses that matter in T17 maps and helps you a lot against all those altars that gives you physics, extra lightning and stuff like that. But basically, these two items alone account for most of the defenses. Now, the wands, you're just looking for triple prefix, LE damage, crit chance, and attack speed. The random suffix you get is just an added bonus, and it really just comes down to how lucky you are on the exalt. So here I exalted on crit multi and T1 accuracy, so super lucky. So Nimis is used. It does create more shotgunning when it comes back, because when it goes out, it can hit the enemy, create some explosions, and then when it comes back, it can also hit it again for more explosions. So super, super good ring. One thing you'll notice is that I'm only using 3 projectiles, which is kind of shitty, but with Awakened Fork in the link, it does create enough overlap for mapping. Now, there is no real way to get more projectiles on wands. There's no quiver or bow that gives you more projectiles. You could steal the Deadeye node for tinctures, but we're using the same setup as bows. We are taking this node here, and I am taking this Oath of Spring for the shock effect, which does get procced up to 100% really, really fast, especially with KB shotgunning. And I took Avatar of the Wilds because 80% more damage is just too broken to not take. Now, for the ring, before I was using Taming. However, I did decide to use this ring. Crit multi generally scales better with Headhunter because you have so much percent damage already. And I could use the Elrion craft, but I did decide to craft some flat damage because I don't have the Elrion craft right now. I do think that late game, you would probably want to be going for a reflected Kalandra ring, but that is going to be a very, very, very expensive upgrade. Now, gloves, this is more or less just life and resist. You can get the tempo mod like I do, which is a critical strike chance against shocked enemies or damage against chilled enemies or flat fire damage against burning enemies. Now, this is just what I've chose, but basically you just want life and resist. Implicits, you need to have gain 1 rage on attack hit. That's how you get rage while mapping. If you make this all the way up, and you can get 2 rage if it's an exceptional modifier, because right now it's a lesser, or it's the T5 variant. But basically you can get 2 rage on attack hit, and that will be a big buff because rage does fall off pretty fast now at like 10 rage per second if you don't attack fast enough. So if you get to the boss room, a lot of times your rage will fall off. Now, Tailwind Elusive boots and Onslaught, you can use regular boots. Don't necessarily need a Tailwind. It just is a super, super feel nice thing. But you could use regular boots with action speed implicit, and you're pretty much looking around like a 4 to 5% difference in action speed. Now, Elusive is something that you'll lose out on if you don't have this type of boots. Now, tinctures, we are using the pen tincture with the increased effect and the attack speed tincture. Again, these are the same tinctures we were using in a bow. It gives you LE damage and crit chance. And Progenesis is used for what's called defenses, and Quicksilver because more move speed is always better. Now on a tree, we are basically still taking the Massive Thread of Hope. Very, very efficient, kind of hard to really say no to. The 2 tincture. Someone did tell me that this node you don't really need. The first 6 mana burn applied to you have no effect. And here we are using a large cluster, Feed the Fury, Opportunic, Fusillade. I'm not a huge fan of Feed the Fury anymore because there's too many T17 map mods where you have no leech. Now, Forbidden Jewel, you have to take a Forbidden Jewel to allocate all these nodes. On the Warden, you can use any one of the Forbidden Jewels, so you're not really locked into using Avatar of the Wild. Watcher's Eye, I'm using Chaos Res and Movement Speed Grace. That's pretty much the only mods on it. Haven't been able to find a triple mod of Watcher's Eye in a very, very long time. And this jewel here, I'm just looking to get phasing on kill and as much flat damage as possible for the wand build. So overall, build is, of course, extremely, extremely expensive. It's kind of hard to imagine playing it without a lot of these components, but this is more of an aspirational build and just kind of to show you how insane some of these rune enchants are. Now, this is only one of the ways to utilize this new broken rune enchants. You could use this on a strength stacking KB setup. I just didn't want to swap out that many pieces because this is a very, very similar build to the bow. And the only thing you really do is you move the bow nodes and move to the top and take that top cluster. Oh yeah, I forgot to say that I had an Unnatural Instinct over here. So very, very similar build to the bow. Still utilizes the tinctures to get that crazy amounts of damage. And the damage on the pop is kind of crazy. And this is very similar to my strength stacking damage in the past. But I do think that Strength Stacker with this wand enchant will be way, way more damage. Now, for some other potential builds you can try out Archmage Ice Nova, Penance Bland, Blade Vortex, or any other spellcaster build. With 2 of these wands with 70% move speed, it's going to feel super, super nice as move speed is too valuable in a post-Berserk world. But thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know down in the comments below if you tried out this wand enchant out and if there's any other cool builds that you can do with this setup. But thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye.